Hi, it's Leslie in Tennessee, and today I want to talk about something that we don't often think about in a home garden, and that is standardization. And what I mean by standardization is all of your beds the same length and the same width. Now, what is the beauty of that? Well, we're learning from our mistakes, and I want you to learn from our mistakes as well. Looking at our garden, we grew a little bit every year. I love square foot gardening, and we started with one bed or two beds, and then we went to more beds, and every year we grow, and someone will give us a grow bed that's a little wider or not the same length or not the same size. And over the years, we've ended up with various lengths of row covers, various lengths for our trellising, various lengths for our watering system. And every year, as we try to restart the garden, we're having to pull through all this stuff to say, okay, which trellis fits here and which watering hose or drip line fits here. And if everything was the same length, we wouldn't have to worry about that. Now, another benefit of standardization is crop rotation. So if you have one bed that's 5 feet long and another one that's 12 feet long and another one that's 20 feet long, and you're trying to rotate your crops to keep your soil healthy, it's more difficult when your beds are not all the same size to do just a systematic rotation of your crops to keep your soil healthy. So looking at our garden, I'm going to have Steve go ahead and scan. Our upper beds are all about 28 feet. But then we have some that are 3 feet wide, and most of them are 2 feet wide. So this is one of the grow beds that was given to me from a friend. Well, my bed here is 2 feet wide, and this one is 3 feet wide. So when I run the watering system down here, I've got a whole foot that's kind of out of sync with the rest of it. I personally prefer a 2 foot wide bed. Now, this is a 3. I find that it gets a little crowded. If you were a commercial grower, the standard width of the bed would be 30 inches if you do wide bed growing. So 36 inches is a little wide. You can reach in, but it's too wide to straddle and work. And when you're reaching in your center row, if you're doing a square foot for all your crops, now you have a middle row that makes it a little bit more crowded. There's not as much room for it to grow out over the edges. So I really prefer a 2 foot wide bed over a 3 or a 4, even though a 3 or a 4 would work. It just makes everything a little more crowded, which means you're going to have less air circulation, and it's more difficult to trellis if you have a 3 foot wide bed and you don't want to be pounding sticks through your landscape fabric or your weed barrier that's underneath. So what we're going to do now is take apart everything that is not standard. So this bed, we're going to shrink it down to a 2 foot wide and extend it on, and we'll make all the beds the same length so that our drip system will be totally interchangeable for the gardening system, and this should greatly simplify life. So if you're just starting out, think standard. And if you're planning on putting in any sort of a drip system, you probably even want to think standard as far as distance between beds, directions of the beds, so that you can have a header hose that will be consistent with all your beds. And what do I mean by a header hose? Well, let's come up to this end of the garden. So this is our header hose for this section of the garden. And all of the drip lines run off of this. So it starts up here, and it has a pressure regulator, and each line, we just poke a hole in it, and we put the emitter on there, and then the emitters can turn off or on. So if you have standardization on the size of your beds, even your header hoses can be consistent. And this isn't about watering, so I'm not going to get into the whole how to set up the system, but it's very helpful if everything is standard. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you money, it's going to save you mental energy when you go to plan your garden and you want to rotate your crops or you need to trellis your crops. You're going to know exactly what you're working with, and it's all going to be the same. So we got to get back to work because we're taking apart and rebuilding and moving because we didn't do it right the first time. So this bed here is 26.5 feet, and we're going to go with 28 feet. Our land is not level. We have to work with dips, and so we're going with 28 feet. This one is 26.5, so we just needed to add a little extender on here, which we're going to go ahead and fill up for this crop, and in the spring it'll all be standard. These beds are a little bit wider. These are 28 instead of 24 inches wide. In the spring I may decide to tighten that up, but for the 4-inch difference I probably may not. But I would say if you're starting your garden, just be consistent on everything, and I think it'll make your gardening experience a happy one. So a good part of the day has gone by, and we have consolidated two 30-inch by 13-foot beds into one 28 feet by 25-inch beds. And we went ahead and put in a wire mesh I think it's about a 1/4 inch. So here it is, here's the mesh. And so this runs for the remaining part of the bed. We marked it off, maybe about halfway, a little less than halfway. And we've got it in, and we've got it underneath all the bricks all the way down because we had problems with voles eating our sweet potatoes. So this part of the bed will be for our sweet potatoes this coming year, and hopefully this is going to work to keep them out. And I'm thinking that every year I will just pull out the grow mix and move my mesh to wherever I'm growing my sweet potatoes, because the mesh is expensive and the only thing that gets eaten by voles in my garden is the sweet potatoes. So we've got our two beds now running the same direction, the same lengths of our other two beds, and it looks like we're going to be good to go. And now I'm already dreaming about putting a third 28-foot bed in there. I hope this helps. God bless you, and remember, you were created to live in the garden.